Very good afternoon, Principal, Deputy Principal, Senior Masters, Senior Mistresses, tutors. I've been fortunate enough to again present in the second Teachers Forum, having presented in the first Teachers Forum in November last year. It was more of a sharing session last time, and based on the feedback from last year, it was actually a follow-up to this more research-based kind of work. And this is actually our MIP. It's not my solo project. It's a collaborative project amongst the upper 6 chemistry tutors from last year. In fact, we have done it for 2 years. We started from our lower 6 in 2014, and we continued all the way to 2015 last year. What we have done really is really adopt an approach rather than it's a best practice. It's an approach that we adopt together as the upper 6 tutors in teaching the upper 6 chemistry last year. So I work with CheeSheng and also Siti Rohaini, who is doing her LDP in UBD at the moment. So yeah, without further ado, I just want to highlight the importance of assessment. So a few weeks ago, Chigutio had a very short talk. He briefed us on the importance of A-levels and all the AS modules and the grade thresholds and various sort of things. So yeah, one of the things he hasn't highlighted is about this familiarity with recent past year papers. We know that a lot of students nowadays they have access to past year papers, and it's becoming a concern that students can pass exams just by doing a lot of past year papers, which they can forget everything by the time they leave school. By the minute they leave the exam hall, how much information do they retain? That's the problem. So I think when we are designing our assessment in terms of the school tests, school exams, this is one of the things that we are concerned about, and it's one of the things that drive us towards forming this group of tutors to discuss about setting exam questions and eventually marking them. So when we set exam questions, just like CPEC sometimes we don't really understand ourselves, and by discussing it among the tutors, some are with more experience. Jay and I were new last year, well, 2 years ago. So we learned a lot from Siti Rohaini, from experience, but we felt that we could also contribute a lot to the discussion as well. We bring new findings in the scientific world, because a lot of Cambridge questions, especially those in A-level nowadays, they try to relate to recent discoveries. Because exam papers are usually set 3 to 4 years in advance. They are not set a week. Cambridge don't set it a week before the exam. They have stockpile of questions, which is why some of the questions that appear in that particular year, they usually case study from 3 or 2 years ago. Very recent events, but not as recent as 1 month ago. And another thing that I'll be talking about is about when we are marking the exam papers, we try to adopt a flexible approach. I know a couple of tutors, they are very particular on marking schemes. But when you read through Cambridge marking schemes, they do specify that marking schemes are intended to advise teachers on how to mark, but not necessarily as a strict guideline. It's open for interpretation, and I think all of us we are expert in our own area, and it's really up to us to assess and decide whether another alternative, which are not included in the marking scheme, should be accepted or not. And as a group, we need to decide that, so that we are not just giving advantage to certain students while certain students from other classes are not given the same benefit of doubt. And of course, with a lot of these discussions, we do standardized marking and discussions. We can analyze as a group, as a whole cohort, what kind of thing that most students have difficulty with. We try to focus on the bigger picture, not just on the small thing, but what kind of things that most people have trouble with. And I think that's very important. What kind of thing they have problem with, we will try to tackle it. Instead of just focusing on 1 or 2 students, we focus as a whole group, and we inform everyone of what kind of mistakes that most people do, and hopefully students will learn not to do the same mistakes in the future. So just a little bit of this review from my slides. So Hayward and McNichol, they are both British. This is basically a criticism of the modular approach in the UK. So a few years back, I think it's no longer around, But UK A-levels has been doing this modular approach where you can do 3 papers for AS, 3 papers for A2, and you can cherry pick the best mark from each paper to make out your A-level. It's cherry picking. For us, it's different. For our CIE, is you take the whole AS or you don't take it at all. But overall, it's still A-levels and A-levels, and that's why A-levels has been criticized a lot in the UK, and they are moving away from this modular approach starting this year. Even GIS has already adopted this. Well, GIS follows the international British curriculum, so they are no longer modular. They are like us now, linear. So it's not just that they can cherry pick this. There's advantage for the students, but it's a concern for the higher education lecturers. They feel that they come in with what they got an A, but they are not really A material. I think it's also our concern as well when we see people with an A or B grade in O-level. It's no longer as prestigious, as accurate or as true as possible from their school assessment results. And yeah, this is just what Cole has said, that compared to the late 1980s, which some of you actually did your A-levels back in 1980s, is a big difference in the value of the grades. And so yeah, basically people are worried. The standards have slipped. And I think that was in 2010, and we already concluded the standards indeed have slipped. It's getting easier because of the grade threshold being lowered, as Cikgu Teo shared last time during his briefing. And it shouldn't make us complacent. We should be thinking like, well, if the threshold is lowered, why don't we try to beat the system? Why don't we try to get our students, prepare our students as best as possible, so that they can try and beat the system and take advantage of the lower grade threshold and score themselves a better grade. Although in reality we know that the actual grade might be slightly lower, but at the end of the day, their grades are going to count towards their ability to enter top institutions or top varsities around the world. Okay, so this is basically our project. So we started with, it's been a 2-year-long project really. I mean, it's a best practice approach. So we started with the lower 6. So CheeYi and I taught cohort 2, so we only started this when we had the first progress test in June 2014. I had this idea because I knew about it, I learned about it when I was doing my teaching practice at Maktab Duli. And in Maktab Duli, the whole chemistry department adopted this Qpack standardized marking. It smoothens their exam period, because if they have like they have 3 times our chemistry population, for example, if they have 300 chemistry students, but they have, let's say, 10 chemistry tutors, but 5 teaching lower, 5 teaching upper. Examination deadlines are very strict. Yeah? I know internal deadlines are 1 week after the exam finish, then Cikgu Anna will start asking tutors for submissions or marks and grades whatsoever. So one of the things that's really people don't realize is that the upper 6 exams and the lower 6 exams, they tend not to coincide at the same time. So by approaching this, by adopting this approach, MD cuts down on the marking time. So everyone gets involved with each marking session, regardless of whether you're teaching the same level or not, regardless of whether you teach the student or not. So that you have more manpower. They are all marking to the same standards. And in fact, I'm going to talk about standardization in a bit. And basically, it saves the workload. It quickens the process. It's still consistent because everyone discussed about the marking scheme before actually starting to mark randomly, and some give advantage, some don't give advantage. So it's all marked consistently and with a much faster approach. And yeah, okay. So yeah, we utilize for all the papers as well, for MCQs, for paper 2, for practicals. We compile a master spreadsheet so that we can see what kind of questions they are not doing so good in, what kind of questions they are quite easy for them. Because in an assessment, we are not supposed to have everything difficult questions. It always has to have a good balance of easy and then slightly harder, slightly harder, slightly harder. I mean, from Bloom's taxonomy, there needs to be things which they can come in and then they can do straight away. And then it needs to go to things like they require further understanding, and then higher applications, and of course eventually are they able to suggest new ideas, improvement, that kind of thing. Okay, so what we do really as a group is prior to the exam session, so Cikgu Teo will give us the timetable, and then we will meet up as a group. We don't usually meet up like afternoon briefing, like for 2 hours, 3 hours. No, it takes very short time, really, like 10 minutes. I mean, we are all in the same school, and we can communicate via phone and whatsoever lah. So what we do is we make up the time. We spend time meeting up, and then we'll discuss about first of all what kind of questions that we are planning to set. It's very important, like I said earlier on, assessment to cover as many topics as possible. So I know what happens in school progresses. Sometimes we try to just cover the couple of topics that we just did. However, even if it's just 1 or 2 topics, it's not realistic to just keep on giving the same type of question again and again. So it's good that with one syllabus statement, we can try to interpret it in many ways, and we try to open up the branch. And in that way, we can test our students a lot more, and we can give opportunities for them to see different types of questions. And when we created our exam papers and test papers, we don't just rely on CIE exam papers. We also look at IB and Taxonomy and QPEC, provided that it matches our assessment objective as in CIE objective. I mean, why not, right? I mean, we are not supposed to keep on giving them questions they've seen before. They might have gone to tuition. And does it help them? Well, we want to see that, we want to test that. Is it realistic enough or not? And that's what we have been doing for some of the questions. Not all, but some of the questions. So yeah, I mean, each of us will decide on excuse me. So if we have decided to, let's say, cover a lot of topic 3 in one of the paper 2, excuse me, then we will try to minimize to cover that topic again in the other papers, because we want to try to maximize the number of topics, the number of assessment objectives we can test them on, really. So eventually we'll meet up again just before we go to printing to finalize all the questions and to discuss the marking schemes and etc. etc. Eventually we do print our own paper as well, because we're supposed to divide the duty, and that way each person is not doing too much, but everyone is doing something. So I mentioned about this Bloom's taxonomy, and ideally questions, every single exam question should be set to that kind of standard. Although it's very difficult to come up to this kind of question. Most of the CIE questions that fall along this level only. Even though it suggests, suggestive questions tend to be of this level, but there have been a school of thought that says that if you do 1,000 past papers, you have come out similar kind of improvement, and you are able to suggest, not because you are thinking about it, because you have done so much of it that you just know it. So technically speaking, they are mostly testing along the lower order levels only. So yeah, students should be able to do it, right? Provided they actually spend the time doing it. Okay, so the post-examination, so what happens afterwards? We talk about this standardization, right? In fact, this is the key process of QPEC. So we'll have because there are 3 of us, and then we always need someone to have a final say, to decide the final thing. And because of my experience with QPEC from MD, and also I've shared last time that I also marked for Cambridge as well, but I've been approved to mark for Cambridge, but I've not been given any duty yet. So yeah, I acted as the principal examiner for the first few sessions, but then as we go along, we do actually discuss. The principal examiner just doesn't make up the decision on his own or on her own. We discuss, but then the principal examiner will make the final decision. Do we accept or do we not accept, based on good judgment, like a judge essentially. You listen to the argument for, and you listen to the argument against, and then eventually you have to use your judgment to decide. Okay? So what we do is, each of us have our own block. We'll divide each block by block, and then what happens is I will choose a random script, remove the name, I'll photocopy 3 sheets of the same exam paper, so that we are not marking at first using the actual paper. We're using a photocopied script. Okay, and then from the photocopied script, we'll mark according to the marking scheme, and then we will see what kind of adjustment we can make to the marking scheme based on some students' answers. Because sometimes the students are, especially the clever ones, they can come up with alternative to the marking scheme. They actually think about it. It's actually logical, so why not we accept it? Of course, we'll discuss among ourselves, is it sensible to accept it? I'll show you an example later on. And of course, after we discuss, then we will revise the marking scheme accordingly. That's called moderation. So now everyone has a revised marking scheme. we will mark another standardized paper. We'll try to standardize another paper. Just take a random paper, photocopy it, and we mark according to the new marking scheme. Our mark should tally to the same, right? Because we are marking to the same standard. We are not trying to think of who they are or who they were or what they're able to do. We're just marking them to the revised marking scheme, giving them benefit of the doubt because the Cambridge markers, they don't even know our students at all. Of course, some of the things we discuss is handwriting. If you cannot see the handwriting, do you accept it? It's called benefit of the doubt. Do we give them the benefit of the doubt or do we penalize them? Number of numerical answer, numbers, like 1 decimal place, 2 decimal place. Do we penalize them again balik-balik or do we penalize them just once? Those are some of the things we discuss. And of course, if we are just marking to our own standard, we might have different standards. Some are linear, some are harsh. So we come to a standard so everyone is treated fairly. And at the end of the day, after all this standardization, we don't just mark our own paper. We don't go and take our own partner. We take from, it's like randomized, right? Let's say you have 5 of it. So myself, I'll take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then CheeYi will take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then Siti will take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we come back again. Until all the paper run out, then we just, basically we all have roughly equal number of scripts to be marked, but from different blocks. Of course, the bigger blocks will have more students to be marked by you. Okay, like I said, the marks tally should be the same eventually for the standardized script. That is when we know the standardization has worked. Okay, I talked about photocopying scripts, but we actually digitally archive as well. So I scan it, and because I scan it, then I can just snapshot whatever I want at any point I want. Because we are giving them back the paper, right? I don't keep them, but at least I have a digital copy. So this is an example of a paper 2 question. It's a chemistry question. There's no need to understand the chemistry. But as you can see, the answers are different. But how come they have marks here and then they don't have marks here? Okay. In reality, Cambridge really approached the on-screen marking, so they don't require the tick and the cross. Okay. But we do go through it in corrections in class. The reason why we don't do corrections, we don't put a lot of tick and crosses, is save our time. You can finish marking one paper in 5 minutes. You are like a machine that already programmed to know what kind of thing to accept, not accept, not accept. Very clear cut already. Because you ask all the questions during discussion already, it's very quick. And then we do the corrections in class with our own students, of course. Okay? So this is a clean script just after we finish marking already. So yeah, here the answer is correct, but the answer here is wrong. But we do, the actual marking scheme doesn't say allow error carry forward. But we decide that, well, you know, they actually show the knowledge. They've been penalized once for a wrong mistake, but they've shown correct knowledge in the next part. Surely they will have gotten some mark. And it's only when they leave things blank, they will not get anything. But when they're penalized once for a wrong knowledge, once based on the wrong knowledge, after that if they show correct knowledge based on that, they will always get error carry forward. It's a carry forward mark, and they should never be disadvantaged because they're not given it in school because certain tutors are more harsh or more lenient, that kind of thing. Yeah, there's just an example. This is an example where this is a straight from the marking scheme. So the marking scheme just gives 3 alternatives. There's nothing on the time. This is talking about how come this reaction is, how come this is not a very good method. So they just give 3 alternatives. We don't get to see examination reports sometimes, yeah, until well after the examination series. So this was from June paper last year, and we use it for qualifying. So we don't get to see the examination report from CIE yet. But when we mark papers, yeah, we don't. A couple of the script that we see is this thing that people say about longer time, but time is not touched here. But we see longer time, not a very good might not be a very good method. It takes time wasting. It makes sense. It makes sense practically. It makes sense to us as a chemist because we do the actual practical. We know what kind of thing is sensible and what kind of thing is not sensible. So in the end, we discussed and we accepted it, even though it's not in the actual marking scheme. Marking scheme is fixed. Our brain is dynamic. We have experience and we know about what kind of thing to accept and not to accept, and we see the general sample. It could be just 1 student, it could be 10 students who give the same kind of thing. Every single idea we will jot down and we'll discuss, accept or not accept. Very clear cut. Okay, so a bit more onto the heavy side of research. So we did a paired sample t-test. So what basically means is, I was interested in particular to compare the qualifying exam grade and also the actual A-level grade. in order to see whether our A-level grades, the actual A-level grade, does it match what we have given them, the grade that we've given them for qualifying exam result. So there is correlation. And the kind of correlation that we did is using the paired sample t-test, because it's from the same samples, but at 2 different times. I'm not very good at this, but I know it because I read out from books. Okay, so what we did is we give numerical value, because this is from SPSS, it's a statistical package software, SPSS. So it doesn't recognize alphabet, it recognizes number very well. So I have to convert the alphabet into numbers. So the lower the numbers means the better is the grade. So their qualifying exam grade, the mean is 3.23. So that is higher. That means the grade qualified is just slightly worse than A-level grade. And I was doing correlation studies, so there are 69 students altogether. We excluded the repeaters because they are not from our 2 years batch. So that was the reason for our exclusion from this sample group. And we found the correlation is 0.888. So the maths teacher knows that this is out of 1, and 0.888 is a very strong correlation. And for those of you who know statistical study, the significance is less than 0.05, so it's actually highly significant. It's a significant correlation. It's not just correlate like that, it's a significant correlation. Not to bore you further, I think the biologists also know about this null hypothesis, where we have to make a hypothesis, and then we have to do some mathematical calculations in SPSS, and then we have to accept or reject it. So what I did was, I want to see whether there is a difference at all between what they get for qualifying and what they get for the actual thing. And when we have 69 students, and then one column is the qualifying exam grade, and another column is the A-level exam grade in terms of numbers. So I can do this test, and I found out that, well, there is a difference. But what's important is this one. When we do null hypothesis, we just want to see the significance. In terms of quantitative analysis, it is greater than 0.05, therefore we accept it. Okay? You have to take my word for it if you don't understand statistical analysis. I'm sure it's getting heavier now. Okay? But on to the next part, what I want to show you is really, it is reliable. This Qpack alpha is another term. What it measures is consistency. When you have grade A and grade A, and then you have 69 students, A become B, B become B, C become C, C become B. How consistent is it? How consistent is the trend? And the consistency shown is 0.940. Again, this is out of 1. There are 2 items because it's 2 columns, the qualifying exam grade and the real A-level November 2015 grade. So it's quite a high correlation, and it's consistent. And I dare to conclude that our in-house assessment is actually quite highly reliable. And just to give you overall results, so if you have a look at the number of A to C that we have 39, and we get exactly 39 A to C in the real thing as well. The same thing for the D to E as well. But I can tell you one thing, actually, the 2 students who got U, they are not the 2 AS. So there's a slight mismatch. That's why the correlation is not exactly 1. That's why it's not perfect 100%. So people do improve over time. But what we're trying to show is that there is quite a strong correlation. You can see quite similar numbers. It's not like suddenly 39 becomes 60. That means our in-house assessment is too difficult. It's not like 39 straight away become 1%. That means our in-house assessment is too linear. I'll skip the graph. This is basically what I did really. This qualified exam grade, so A, B, C, D, E, U, A, B, C, D, E, and then this basically said that there are some students who got 2, and then they get 1 in the real thing. So they have scored a B, and then they got an A in the real thing. And then most people lie on the line. Most people, their grades are consistent. So the people there is outweighed by the people there. I hope that makes sense. Yes. So just to conclude really, this Qpack is an approach. We find it easily adoptable. It's very open. You can adopt it in any department really within the school. It's not just strictly for chemistry, it's easily adopted by other departments as well. And of course, once we are committed to it, we really know that we have deadlines. We set a deadline and we respect it. Like, okay, you have this much pile of script. How soon can you deliver? So if we say 1 week, then by the end of 1 week, we have to deliver. Otherwise, you're not just marking your own student, right? You're marking other people's students as well. How would you feel if you finish marking and other people haven't finished marking when we already set the deadline to begin with? But all of us, we actually respect deadlines very well, and we finish it ahead of time, ahead of the internal examination analysis requirement. Like I said, it actually helps to streamline the marking process, because once we know clear cut, we don't need to think anymore, like whether to accept or not. It's like, we discuss about this, we cannot accept this kind of answer, we cannot accept this kind of vagueness. And then liability and commensurate means is on the same path, same level of students' achievement. And just to tie it off really, I mean, even though I've been talking about assessment, in reality, of course, education is not just assessment, although assessment does have a big part in deciding where they are going after A-levels. With that, I end my talk. It's been a long one actually. I'll open the floor for around 10 minutes Q&A if anyone has got any questions. Thank you very much. Yes, Dr. Vincent.
The topics, or rather the papers, so did you guys just look at one paper?
No, we decide on topics before the paper. We have the syllabus, right? We decide on topics. Then we decide on subtopics. Then we decide which part of the curricular objective we want to test. Then we will decide to put it paper 1, paper 2, or paper 4, something like that. And then if it comes out once, does it mean we cannot test it again in other paper? It doesn't necessarily mean so, because like I said, some of the curriculum objective statement is too vague. Actually, it's very big. But we are only testing one part of it in one section of the paper. We can also test it again in another paper.
So basically, you're taking a sample of questions from the different papers.
Yeah. And in fact, as far as I know, we are not supposed to use the whole 1-year paper for qualifying exam or any school exam, right? As advised by Tutor.
So what you're saying is you're taking a sample of questions from different papers.
Okay.
And you got your group to work together. And then you realize that when you work together, you can actually make your marking more accurate.
Yes, and easier as well, and faster.
And the data suggests that the marking is rather accurate.
Yes. I mean, we try to be as accurate on marking as possible, really. I mean, of course, like I said, we do accept alternative, provided it's correct chemistry, and provided they have shown enough knowledge. As long as they don't leave it blank, we cannot disadvantage them if they have written something sensible. As long as we penalize them once, we cannot keep on penalizing them all the way up. Does that answer the question, Chigu?
Yeah. And the other thing, of course, is that the questions are more structured questions.
We also look at MCQ questions as well. In fact, I myself am very interested in MCQ questions because MCQs are very tricky. I got a template from Brian last time. We can see how many people, so out of the 69 samples, we can see how many people have chosen A, how many people have chosen B, how many people have chosen C, how many people have chosen D. And then for the questions, we call it item by item analysis. So for the questions where there are very few correct answers, then we look. So what kind of answer does most people put there? Oh, that one. Why do most people put down the wrong option? We call it distractor. Then we will discuss more answer. Maybe it's something that we need to tackle. It's a misconception. And that was what I mentioned just now, identifying common misconceptions. What kind of things that people do wrong. And therefore we'll try to mention it in class, and we'll try to correct it in class as well, before it's too late.
And that's the most interesting part, isn't it?
Yes.
Once you identify the misconception, you use it in the design of the lesson.
Not just for the current batch really, once you know it, then next time you know it, and it can really help in your future teaching as well. Like, I mean, students, they all come with pretty much the same O-level, right? So if this year's students can do the same kind of mistake, we would think that maybe next year's student could also potentially make the same kind of mistake. And it does us no harm to inform them. These are actually common misconceptions, don't do it. Right? Any other questions from the floor?
But this is interesting that if a lot of students make the same mistakes, misconception.
Yes, I think like when MCQ, let's say we have 69 students, when we have difficulty index, we call difficulty index is equal to number of correct answers over total number of answers. So out of 69, how many people get it correct? The lower the difficulty index, that means the harder is the question. Then we have conditional formatting like in the Excel that it will automatically show us which one show up as a pink cell, and then we'll look at the options, what kind of thing they do wrong, like I said to Vincent just now, and we try to discuss what can we do. Not just finding out the error, but what can we do about it. Any other questions from the floor? All right. Okay. I think that's it. If anyone is interested, really interested, I don't mind holding a workshop to show people how we've been doing it, because it's a practical approach and it doesn't really help if you just relate via verbally, you know. So if anyone is really interested or department is interested, get in touch. I mean, there's our job as part of the professional development team is to give out workshops to help you develop professionally. Alright, okay, with that I end my presentation. Thank you very much.